tension around U.S. work. There'll be a tension around U.S. work that we are navigating, and that has made us a little slower to do exactly what you've asked about, which is to, Patricia, to get our act together. We all know the number one vulnerable group are immigrants. Everybody knows it. And he said what he's going to do. Quietly, by the way, the one unlikely group that some of us have been reaching out to is that the big business community doesn't like this. They depend on immigrant workers. It's not just, it's fast food chains, but it's also agricultural related industries. So quietly, we are reaching out there and just saying, come on, say something. Don't, yeah. So I think if we do that cleverly, the deportations will be more selective and will be less. So that's an unlikely sort of thing. Even if we didn't say anything, yeah, construction is a big one. Even if we didn't say anything, these business people are saying it to Trump. So that is going on. Now, there's a lot of conversations going on how to, well, the movement I didn't mention that happened in both the US and Canada during the Central America wars was the sanctuary movement. So cities will say, we're not going to allow agents of the federal government, the immigration agents, to come into our cities and arrest people. Churches will once again become sanctuary churches. All of that will grow quickly. Trump likely then designates those as terrorist. I mean, in the worst scenario, he designates them as terrorist organizations, takes away their tax status and so on. So we can't, yes, conversations are going on how over the next month and a half we can organize. And I'll just tell you the difference between now and 2016. In 2016, it was mass demonstration, get 2 million women out, people out for the Women's March, occupy airports on the Muslim ban. This time, people are recognizing that likely works less well. So are there just effective ways to protect and surround immigrants? For a place like IPS that has a communications arm, it's how do we remind the majority of Americans that they actually love immigrants, and remind Americans of all the amazing ways that immigrants contribute. So I do think it's the biggest thing you will see in the first 6 months of 2025, and the planning is going on now, but it hasn't congealed yet.
Thank you, John. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, thanks. It's so thought-provoking for all of the pieces that you've brought to us. I had to react to your right-wing government won't be as bad as ours, likely. I just had to react to that because I wouldn't have that faith. And even before we have a right-wing government, we have really, really disturbing trends in this country under a liberal government. And some of the stuff that you've been talking about, I mean, ISDS right now, Canada is negotiating, fast tracking. One of my colleagues with the CLC has said, the negotiation of the Canada-Ecuador free trade agreement is proceeding at warp speed. And even though there was a referendum in Ecuador against ISDS, there's no guarantees that it won't be in this agreement, maybe called something else. But essentially the same guarantees for corporations to, continue to take all those minerals and bring them here without, with such destruction amid climate collapse in the Amazon region, to just to point the finger at one place. And so, yeah, I mean, we've all watched our government, and not even a conservative government, engaged in the new colonialism, and it's just disgusting. So, but I take your point about most people don't realize this. Most people don't see this. And we are painted as the good ones. We're the good ones. We're not the Americans. We're the good ones. Well, we're not the good ones. So I just would say that. And on immigration, I mean, the Safe Third Country Agreement that we've tried so hard to overturn unsuccessfully, And so the border is closed, and we see announcements now that the liberals are proposing to slash immigration, maybe in the interest of winning the next of staving off losing the next election. So like play into the same anti-immigrant sentiment. I mean, it's a really disturbing scenario here, really disturbing. And all of us were part of, denouncing a liberal government's use of the Lima Group to bring together horrendous right-wing governments to point the finger at Venezuela. All the governments that in the Americas that were doing exactly the same thing or worse, and yet, they share the podium with them. We're allies. So a very disturbing scenario in this country. I totally take your point and love the idea of hope-based communications, and I see that in what some of our partners in Ecuador have done with their campaign, yes to Yasuni, as opposed to saying no to, the destruction, no to the resource extraction, but rather yes to life, yes to the protection of the environment. And I think we really need to do much more of that, of a messaging that draws people in for what we all want, right? And then the explanation of what's threatening that. So anyway, you just got my brain bouncing around, but like the scenario here, even without the conservatives winning the next election, is truly chilling.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, just one quick thing I'll say, because when I first went to Latin America in the 1980s, we were told going down there, if somebody's like really upset with you, just say you're Canadian. And it was funny because my wife and I had spent a lot of time in the Philippines, and there, the Dutch volunteers had T-shirts made that said in Filipino, "I am not Joe." Joe was from G.I. Joe, World War II. So you're the Dutch of Latin America. I mean, not your government. Your government has supported mining projects and all that crap. It doesn't have as bad, you didn't overtly overthrow governments the way ours did. So, but ordinary Americans have a bad reputation in Latin America, and ordinary Canadians don't. So, and it's easy for us to fake. I see Steve is saying not anymore. Well, I just say, like, going through Central America, I mean, going through El Salvador with Canadians, oh my God, you guys are loved there. And it's because people like Laura and, others have been there, Christy and Viviana and so on. You've paved a good road, and whereas Americans are instantly thought, okay, that person might be good, but they're probably trying to control this coalition or trying to do this. Anyway, yeah, say we're all from Quebec. That's it. Okay. Laura, to you.
Yes, absolutely agree with Kathy. We could have talked, and I love this because we're all being informed and analyzing the current situation. And for me, how the distinction between governments and the peoples, right? And you're highlighting how people in the Americas have recognized the solidarity of the Canadian peoples, right, through their organizations. And that's a strength that you've highlighted in your presentation, how from Canada and Quebec, we've had those relationships with labor and civil society in Mexico. And, to answer a bit, we'll need to analyze how we were successful in having a positive position by Canada this time around, in terms of not recognizing officially the re-election of Bukele, contrary to what they did with Juan Orlando in Honduras, for example. So I think we need to still analyze why Canada this time did the right thing and keep silence and not officially. We got this confirmation from Go First Canada. And one of the factors that I believe is of the strong relationships that we've been able to build, just to give you an idea for other folks that are not participating in this campaign, we realized very quickly that one of the senior political head of mission in the embassy in El Salvador had been there for 10 years and had visited ADIS and had seen the work of ADIS. So that relationship was key because as senior advisor, she was reporting back to Ottawa and saying, well, this is a community and clearly there's some politicization of these arrests. And also us from Canada, having us come together, the United Church, Co-Development, PSCC, Interpares, Co-Development, so many other organizations, Common Frontiers, doing a Front Commun, leading and reminding Canadian officials, reminding Canadian parliamentarians that Canada was a broker of the peace accord. So reminding the history that was there was also instrumental in Canada. Okay, well, obviously this case is a violation of the peace accords that we've been promoting in Colombia, for example, right? Canada was also instrumental in the peace accord, that 2016 peace accord in Colombia. So a lesson that I take away from this conversation with John, we have to invite you again for sure in 6 months down the line, because I could talk so much about the immigration in Canada. I just passed the last 5 days denouncing attacks for a member of parliament in Quebec, naming the construction of the other, naming racism put into policies in the Legislative Assembly of Quebec, and it was uproar in Quebec. So it's just been a crazy backlash in Quebec just to name racism and systemic racism. So the fight is real. Kathy, I agree with Kathy that it's not as rosé as we would think. And Justin Trudeau put a video 3 days ago officially saying, you know what, I was wrong. We're going to cut down on immigration. So if Trudeau is doing that, the fight is far from over. But my concluding remarks is that more than ever, we need to create those linkages, those alliances. And I'm so happy that we were brave enough as APG in 2022, 23, or 2020, in the pandemic, we decided not to shut down the office. We were thinking of, we don't have enough money, we don't have staff, maybe we should shut down this APG. And many of you on this call, like Steve, like Bill, and so many others, Laura and Kathy, that have been there for many years, said, no, we need to continue, and welcomed us newbies into this space. And I'm so happy to continue. And I'm so happy Karen is here, because we need to also work alliance to alliance between the America's Policy Group and Common Frontiers. So that was the same conclusion that we came in Toronto at the Common Frontiers in person meeting back in September, that we reinforce those linkages and those connections and relationships. Because más persecución, más organización, right? So I mean, last word to you, John.
John, you have to rush right at 4 because I see some hands still.
No, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, I know you had okay. Because Laura Avalos, the other Laura has a hand up. I see. And
thanks. Just a quick question. Thanks, John. That was a great presentation. I'm a big fan of your work for a long time, so it's great to see you speaking. Just wanted to raise, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the provincial premiers seem to be calling for our government to throw Mexico under the bus and negotiate a bilateral trade agreement with the United States. You're shaking your head. It seems to me a stupid idea. That I don't know, maybe it's just kind of a tactic to push Mexico to restrict Chinese investment and exports through Mexico. Maybe it's just tactical, but I wonder if you have any reaction from an American perspective to that idea.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. The other thing I guess I should have said is, I think what Trump will use, I don't think you can pull this off in Canada, but yeah, I do think it's a tactic. I do think they have an agreement they more or less like. I mean, for example, the current US-Mexico-Canada agreement allows no lawsuits between the US and Canada. It's only with Mexico. So it's like a racist investor state clause in there. But Trump is going to, he did it in his first term. You threaten Mexico with tariffs to get them to do what you want. They will threaten Mexico because they don't. Well, what's interesting, when Claudio Sheinbaum, when Trump was inaugurated, the Trump delegation to, it was when AMLO was inaugurated. The Trump delegation was Mike Pence, Ivanka Trump, and Ivanka Trump's husband. And AMLO, said, okay, Ivanka Trump is Jewish. Who do I have host her? And he had Claudia Scheinbaum was the host of Ivanka Trump and her husband, Jared Kushner. And so now Ivanka Trump turned out to be a nightmare, but she was good on this. She bonded with Claudia Scheinbaum, and the Mexican government is smart. They are trying to send out things that will prevent this sort of thing. But I do think that the US wants to keep Mexico in that accord to have leverage, but they will also use tariffs against her. They don't want, more immigrant. They have to show that they're, quote, closing the border. But I didn't know the details of what you just said, Laura, so I'll look into it more because we should get ready. We should get ready for that. Yeah, that's terrible. And that would completely go under the radar. People in this country would say, okay, another US-Canada agreement, who cares? They're good white people, so that would be the response. Anyway, yeah, we have to get ready for the thing about Donald Trump is he will be very unpredictable. He really does make it up as he goes. He's got certain principles he's pushing, but he makes it up as he goes, and he wants to stay popular. Our job is to make his policies unpopular, make the deporting of immigrants unpopular. And that's what will stop him more than anything else. And it's going to take a new playbook. We've got to, yeah. This is forcing us all to rethink the work we do and how we do it. So, and that's why I do love, thank you, both Lauras, and for the invitation to continue the dialogue going, because yeah, we will learn from you and you'll learn from us, and we'll learn from each other's mistakes too. We'll make a lot of mistakes, and but in the end, I think Trump is going to make a lot of mistakes. He already has. So Matt Gaetz has already withdrawn his name. Yay, big victory today. I mean, he'll nominate now somebody equally horrible, but but that's a win. That's an early win there of him being impulsive, and that we can use against him. So anyway, huge thanks to all of you, and thanks for what you do. And really thanks. This, if I were to subtitle what I said, it's really it's a 40-year love letter to Canadian organizations. And thank you. And thank you for a whole new generation coming in and taking over great organizations and bringing them to new heights. And I'm so glad you didn't close down. So thank you.
Amazing, beautiful 40-year love letter. Okay. Appreciate it. It's never too late. And John, 2 weeks ago when we were all depressed on our meetings, we're ready to give you refugees in Canada.
Yeah.
Very compañero, but we need to, perhaps you'll have to move to Pennsylvania or Arizona. Maybe you'll be more useful there.
No, we'll take you up on that. Yeah, we'll see you in 2 months in Ottawa. Okay. Okay, take care, all of you.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the APG steering committee, we'll be in touch. We'll continue our conversations, and best of luck in the next couple of weeks, but we will communicate. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks so much. See you all soon.
Gracias, Laura. Thank you so much, Laura, for facilitating that conversation. We have a break now. I do hope you can all come back after the break at 4:10. We want to have a conversation about our meeting in Ottawa, and Steve is going to lead us through that conversation. It's really, really important as we see an opportunity and a new moment to revitalizar. Sorry, I can never say that in English.
It's very similar.
And we have some resources available to make this happen. So please come back in at 4:10, okay?
Grab a coffee and come back.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, social media. Basically, we have a Facebook. I followed quite a few accounts on there, but I don't think anything's been shared. And I tried to make a Twitter or X, but the account got suspended. So I'm just trying to figure out how to get through that. And then there's also conversation if we want to even use X or Twitter, which is a whole other thing. And then I think I have an Instagram set up as well. I remember it just took a little while to try to, let's do Blue Sky. Sure. I'm happy to make a Blue Sky. But yeah, basically if people have any, I'll send a link to all the social media also in an email after this meeting. Sorry, my
You
brain.
also created a YouTube channel for us,
Yes.
and we have something up there, I think.
Yes, YouTube channel. If you missed Jorge's presentation on the Reflections to Argentina, that's uploaded on there and is available to members. I had sent an email with a link of it beforehand. So you guys should all have access to that. At the moment, I believe it is link only, but because I wasn't sure if we wanted to have it public or not, but all members should be able to view it. If you're not able to, just send me a quick email and I'll send you the proper link.
Okay, thanks, AC. I just wanted to make sure that it's one thing to say we have social media, but how do people get it and how do we start interacting with it? The other thing before we talk about the spring gathering is John had mentioned how he hopes that the APG continues. And we are in danger of coming to an abrupt halt at the end of December. We have been without a treasurer for several months. Sylvia, who was sort of our interim treasurer, not Sylvia, sorry, Mariev, who was our interim treasurer, got a full-time teaching job in September, and she's basically just been doing the skeleton activities to keep us going. But she said she can't do that past December. So after December, if we don't have a new treasurer, we can't issue checks, so we can't pay AC, we can't cover a lot of things. So I'm just going to very quickly put up in the screen what the activities are of the treasurer. If anyone is really moved at this moment, we would love it if you step forward now to become treasurer. But otherwise, discuss it with your organization, and we desperately need someone. Ideally, it will be someone from Quebec or Ontario, because our account is with Desjardins and they make life very difficult if you are trying to create a signing officer that's not from there. And I see two participants have raised their hands, so I'll go with Patricia and then Laura.
Well, I don't know what are like the requirements, but I'm in BC, so not ideal, but if no one else can do it, then I'll be happy to step in.
Thank you, Patricia. Why don't I go over the requirements? Unless Laura, should I go over the requirements and then you join in, or did you want to
I had a quick question.
Okay.
Did the steering committee approach John Papio?
Yes, but he didn't answer. And he's
Yeah,
not
he's
at
not
this
been
meeting. So I don't know if he's
Yeah.
hiding because we asked him.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to know that. That was all. Thanks.
Okay, and I should add that the work of the treasurer has become lighter since we adopted the new staffing model. So our new staffing model involves a member organization taking on the hiring and paying of the coordinator. So you don't have to be issuing checks and payments for expenses to the APG staff person. That's all done by BC CASA. And the treasurer issues a transfer every 2 months, transferring funds over based on the expense report that we have submitted. So the amount of work, like it says handles day-to-day bookkeeping and issues invoices and receipts, has reduced because of that. Issues payments, monitors membership contributions, all of this in coordination with the coordinator as well. Reviews bank statements, reviews spending. This is the more challenging part, prepares annual budgets and monitors expenses with respect to approved budget. Mariev has committed to preparing an annual report We're on the calendar year, so as of the end of December, she's going to do the annual report and then she's done, which means whoever becomes treasurer doesn't have to worry about that for another year. Attends the steering committee meetings and provides us with any info we need to know on what our balances are and things like that. Coordinates tax returns and audits with accountant if we ever have that. And then provides budgets and reports at the annual general meetings. The treasurer and the co-chairs are signing officers on the account, so they need to sort of sign off on it. And that's about it. Are there any other questions about the position? So what I would suggest, if there aren't, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I remember also previously a lot of the financial, like the budget update, at least the draft was done by the part-time coordinator, but the treasurer was playing an oversight role. Obviously now with having a part-time coordinator, we want the treasurer to step up more, obviously, and Marie-Ève did a Herculean task, and I want to commend Sedal for that, and now BC Casa stepping up to this. So really thank you to both of your organizations. But I'm wondering if there is support from the staff person, in this case, the coordinator, in this case, AC. And I just want to put that out there that it's not the treasurer doing everything alone, right? There's support from, unless I'm completely wrong, but my understanding the treasurer is a oversight role and helping presenting the finances, right?
To an extent, the only caveat is that the coordinator does not have access to the bank account, so they can't see the statements or money that's come in and things like that. So the treasurer has to provide that information for the coordinator to be able to put together things. But things like membership dues, asking for the pledges, collecting on the pledges, all that kind of stuff is done by the coordinator. So Patricia has kindly offered to take on the role. I know it's was very challenging when Deanna was chairperson of getting her name added. It took a long time. So what I would suggest is we perhaps wait 2 weeks till the end of November, say, or early December, to see if anyone from Ontario or Quebec steps forward, and please, the few groups that are still on, promote that. And if not, then we could move forward with Patricia taking on the role. Thanks, Patricia. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So moving on to the next point.
Oh, Steve?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yes, I could be also backup in the interim while Diana comes back, because my understanding after her parental leave, maternity leave, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding that she will come back in her role as co-chair. So her status with the bank, the account should be done. So in the interim, I could step up because I am a Desjardins member already and I live in Quebec. So maybe it's easier for me to play this role. Dale, dale.
Do you mean step up to be treasurer?
Treasurer. Yeah,
Okay.
We could
if that
also
can help until Diana comes back.
We could
So
also have a mix, Steve, sorry to interrupt, but I was thinking, because if Patricia can also help us, maybe we're just looking at the keeping up the numbers on the pledges and the budget, really, if she has that experience and is interested, while we have the signature of Laura, who's in Quebec, because it's gonna be easier to add Laura to the account versus Patricia.
Yeah,
But
I'm already at
I'm
Desjardins.
very grateful, both Patricia and Laura. Thank you for stepping up, both of you. We can figure something out.
So
But-
if Laura wants to be the treasurer and she needs an assistant, she'll tell me and I'll help her. Yeah.
All right, so we'll follow up afterwards. We'll look into the logistics of it, and then we'll follow up with Laura and Patricia afterwards. But it looks like we have between them a treasure. So thank you very much. I would underscore, though, that both Laura and Patricia are also the conveners of the working groups. So just, we do have another space also, like normally there's 5 people on the steering committee. And it'd be nice if some of the other groups got active in the coordination. So there's still a space for someone. If you don't want to do treasurer, but you want to be active in sort of ensuring the success of this network, there's still a space. Thanks. So on to the next item. We have half an hour. As of this month, it has been 5 years since the America's Policy Group has held an in-person general meeting. We used to hold them twice a year. In fact, I remember when we used to hold them 3 times a year in Ottawa. And one of the reasons we would hold these meetings in Ottawa was because chief objective of the America's Policy Group is to make the Canadian government do the things that John Kavanagh got so excited about in his presentation. I think that is the one of the key differences. There's lots of reasons to criticize the Canadian government, but one of the differences, and I know our Mexican partners commented on this when we organized the Mexico event a few years ago in Ottawa, is we have access to our politicians, and if we push hard enough, we can make them do the right things, which not all countries have that kind of access. And so we haven't been able since the pandemic really to really take advantage of that as much as we used to. Although, for example, around the Guatemala issue and things like that, last year we did play a key role in that. So we want to get back together in person, and we want to get back together in Ottawa to sort of, in some ways, announce to Global Affairs Canada and the different parliamentary committees that the APG is back. The other key thing about it is really this year, since our last general meeting, has been a transitional year. We lost our regular staff person. We have an interim staff person who is doing a great job filling in, but the idea is filling in. The reason AC is interim is because the America's Policy Group needs to come to some decisions around how we're going to be structured. I think Adrienne was the 3rd staff person for the America's Policy Group since the America's Policy Group became independent from the Canadian Council for International Cooperation in 2019. There's a lot of factors related to that, and I think the pandemic played a big role of that but we sort of came to the conclusion that part of the problem also is that we have had distant staff people who are, sorry, I'm getting a call, so I have to turn off the ringer. We've had staff person that have been sort of alone in basements. And so we're looking for ways that we could, mechanisms or formats for setting up the staffing that can create a more supportive environment for the staff, but also to raise the overall question, how does the America's Policy Group best meet the needs of our members? Is it enough just to be an informal network? A lot of the work we've done in the last couple of years has been that way, just networking and supporting one another's initiatives. In which case, do we need a staff person, or do we still want to sort of double down on being able to open doors in Ottawa for our members' partners when they come up, and for ourselves when we are trying to push them in directions that are consistent with human rights and sustainable development in the Americas. So those are the kinds of things that we need to make decisions on. And our suggestion is that we hold the meeting sometime in April in Ottawa. The sort of travel season for overseas tends to drop a little bit in April, so we thought that might be a good time. But besides that, I think I'll open it up to comments, and we are recording this, and our AI assistant is gathering this information as well. So we will use any input at this point into creating a proposal, and then over the next couple months we can dialogue around that. So if anyone wants to speak to the proposal of an April annual general meeting, please go ahead. And if no one does, one other thing I would add is in the discussion in the steering committee, there's a couple things that we kind of bandied around. One was sort of our more traditional style of general meetings where people come and one of our Ottawa partners hosts, and we meet in their offices. And the other was looking for some kind of place that could serve as a retreat, where we would all gather in a more kind of isolated place and work in a retreat kind of setting. And now Karen and Natalia have raised your hands, so go ahead, Karen, and then Natalia.
Yeah, just to say that, ooh, take one of these out. I think an in-person meeting is such a great idea, and I so strongly support that. And I also think, you know, we're in these ongoing conversations between APG and Common Frontiers to figure out how to support each other. And I think there's got to be ways to do it, and perhaps having in-person meetings at the same time that overlap and dates that bring the two coalitions together to also meet each other. Like, I just really resonate with certainly with John and what many people have been saying over the last year, really, that there's a need to be doing some collaborative work as much as possible on Latin America. And post Harper, we're without resources. And so I don't have an answer, and I don't speak for Common Frontiers as the lone coordinator, but I definitely think that that's something that I think an in-person meeting would be really great, and I'd love to figure out ways to do that, possibly even together.
Thanks, Karen. Natalia?
Fighting with the headphones. So yeah, I think it's lovely. I'm very excited about the possibility of having everybody here in Ottawa. And I think in terms of like quick contribution, like we have our boardroom at Interpares, and the team worked very hard on making it pretty, and it's a nice space to host. So I next year is a busy year for us. It's our 50th anniversary. Which is kind of very timely to host APG, because Interpares is being, you know, part of this network for a bit. And I'll ask very quickly my coworkers who are here.
I'm gonna say, how many people can you fit? Do you have a cater? Sorry.
Yeah, like 15. It's 15 to 20. It's the
Okay.
space that we have. Yeah. So it's you know, it's tight space, but I mean, we can have some of the meetings here. I would just like to know the dates sooner rather than later, because it's a busy schedule next year with the 50th anniversary, and the sooner we put it on the calendar, the more likely that we are to have the space available for us. So that's, yeah.
Thanks, Natalia.
Yeah.
And is the Interpares office fairly close to public transit? Like,
Yes.
fairly easy
Yeah,
to
we're right in
access?
front of the University of Ottawa, for instance.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Yeah, we're in Sandy Hill for people familiar with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, as soon as we can come up with dates, because we also have like 2 meetings per month where everybody's here, and we have those days blocked in our calendar, because we cannot use those the boardroom those days. Yeah. So the sooner we know, the easier it would be for me to actually deliver my promise.
Okay, well, I think because there aren't too many of us left on the meeting, the best way to fix the dates is to send a doodle poll around, which we can do today, to proposing like 3 dates in April, and that way we can pin it down fairly quick, I think. Any other observations, Laura?
Steve, can you repeat the two questions? Because I'm in transit, I missed the key questions. Can you just repeat? If we want an in-person meeting and
Oh, no, that wasn't a question. That was a statement.
Oh,
We do want an
sorry.
in-person meeting.
See how lost I am. I lost the last 10 minutes.
I think it was more sort of talking about the sort of logistics of it and also what people would like to see at it in terms of oh, I know the question I had. It was around whether we want to do a retreat style, if that's feasible, or a more traditional like we have done in the past with APG meetings where it's somewhere more centric and people come in and attend as they like stay billet or stay in hotels. The other question though related is around like I think a lot of our focus, at least the steering committee's feelings, a lot of the focus needs to be on structure and the future format of the APG. But we also, of course, always enjoy having speakers. So we don't have to decide this at this meeting, but to think about what we'd like to see in terms of speakers and information. We had made, as a steering committee, a suggestion that we invite Global Affairs Canada to speak, which may not be what everyone's favorite, but it would be a way for us to sort of also formally announce to Global Affairs Canada that we're back in a way. Does that clarify it a bit, Laura?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So in terms of the meetings, yes, absolutely. We need to meet in person, and having a 2 full day perhaps is harder to do. A day and a half, I think it's more realistic. And I love that Interparis has proposed to host us. Amazing. I love Interparis' office, super easy access. We're at the corner, King Edward and Laurier, close to University of Ottawa and Rideau Center. And obviously we have the PSAC office as a backup if it's interesting, if that's needed. In terms of what we should be doing going forward, well, it was mentioned during, I think Jessica mentioned that our a successful area of ours has been engaging with government officials. We have a strong reputation, I suppose, and so it's been a great way to open doors with Global First Canada, but also with the parliamentary committees and members of parliament. So how we can continue, we can't do everything, but opening those doors and platforms to have discussions with parliamentarians and Global First Canada, for sure. That's an area, and with embassies as well, right? With the diplomatic corps. I think just having letters and writing to a minister, writing to Global First Canada was instrumental in the success part of Canada's position, influencing Canada's position towards El Salvador and Bukele. So another thing, really remind ourselves and here on the co-chairs and the coordinator, AC Patricia, really remind our members that we should echo each other's work, not to be afraid to ask for each other's help. And Mining Watch has been doing an amazing thing and role modeling this. They're working on Ecuador. APG, can you endorse? Can you support? Can you do? And asking Common Frontiers. So, how can we use each other's work, delegation, energy, and funds to put, APG endorsement? And that is often these speaking tours to Canada have been great to elevate the discussion amongst us, education and advocacy. So that was 2 key delegations that happened in the fall with El Salvador in September and the Ecuadorian women that came from the Ecuador in October, right? So that's where I am right now in terms of where we should keep our focus. Now, who is coordinating this? Yeah, it's hard to ask a part-time coordinator to do this. I totally understand the challenges. I've been there. So why I see the structure of the position is as a support, like what the finance with calling the meetings, with minutes, administration, and as the person in the role gets more confidence, then taking on more leadership in terms of content expertise. But the expertise should come from us, right? And trying to find key speakers. For now, my strategy, depending where we're going with the staffing situation this winter, my plan was to continue playing that role as the Mesoamerica Working Group convener, continuing that role of engaging on our behalf meetings with Global First Canada. There's not been that many, so it's been manageable. We've met with Global First Canada in the last year, mainly on El Salvador and Guatemala, so it's not been so hard. And it doesn't have to be me. I don't want to hug all the information. I am super like copy left. Here's the contacts, here are the emails, here's the info. Like, please go ahead and contact Global First Canada. If it's Jessica or if it's Natalia or Patricia, please write on our behalf and just put like I do. I sign as APG member, Mesoamerica member, right? Like that's my call. That's my conclusion right now, Steve, to answer your question is and to echo Bill's call to be empowered and talk on behalf of our coalition. And obviously the coordination role is to help us remind the editorial process, right? That if we're going to talk on behalf of our coalition, then we should follow our internal democratic venting processes, right? So sometimes we forget, we get all excited and say yes, but what does that yes mean? So not super clear, Steve. I hope it was, I hope AI can help synthesize my comment.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Just one, I think from those of us that are still here, we can take as that provided the dates we end up with suit inter pares, that we are in agreement with holding the meeting, having inter pares host the meeting at their building. Are we in agreement with that?
I would like to
ahead,
discuss
Sylvia.
that a little bit more. I mean, I think it's great that we have interpares and I recognize we have to give them dates soon, and I do agree with the doodle. But I do think we have to think about the space, because a boardroom with only 15 people, if we want to have like a 1.5 day, I was thinking about something that allows people to stretch a little bit more and walk around, just thinking that I don't know, like, I think we should just look at the options, but I'm very grateful that either Interpares or Public Service Alliance have offered their spaces, and we should take them seriously. But sorry, I just don't want to make a decision now. That's my only comment.
All right, yeah. Depending on how successful we are, but traditionally we've usually got around 20 people at the meeting, so I don't know if that would be.
I was very inspired by
speakers.
Common Frontier Space because it allowed for like that kind of working group flow where people could walk around. And if it's a boardroom style worries me for like a full day meeting, might find it very hard to just not stretch and stuff. But anyways, that's just a comment.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. And what I would suggest in terms of the agenda is perhaps the steering committee sort of put together a rough draft and send it out for feedback. There's a couple, like Laura sort of touched on some things of what we've done in the past. It used to be when we met twice a year, every second one would be we'd also do a half day of meetings with MPs. So those, I don't think we can decide that here, but those are some things we might like. Do we want to primarily focus on business, or do we want to primarily focus on sort of making it clear to Ottawa that we're back, and in addition to inviting GAC to speak, to go and have meetings with parliamentary committees or MPs. So those are the kinds of things that once we've sort of put together a draft agenda, I think we can have discussion online between the members. All right. Is there anything anyone else wants to add about the in-person meetings? Oh, sorry, one other thing, and I think Laura kind of touched on this, is AC, the steering committee does propose to extend AC's participation as the interim staff person until after the annual general meeting. We haven't done a formal contract extension yet, but it seems to be the most logical thing to do. And we have reviewed finances, and we are able to do that. But AC is in a basement in Ottawa and Victoria. And so in terms of some of the logistics, just sort of a heads up that we will need support from some of the member organizations in Ottawa of sort of suggesting the best options for accommodation and some of the things like that, some information on transport. But that will come up as we proceed.
Can I just quickly add on that? Absolutely, and I totally agree that we should be covering AC's expenses and having her good accommodation. So that's where I would put the money to make sure that we cover their expenses and less on spending money on very fancy, expensive venue. I know that Interpares had a good experience with where you had your staff retreat, but I don't know if it's super expensive. I don't know. That's where I am. If we need to make a decision on finances, I will prioritize per diems and accommodation and transportation for our coordinator to cover their expenses. That just wanted to mention that.
All right. Well, if there's no more we need to touch on the general meeting, maybe I'll pass the microphone, the virtual microphone, back to Jessica and Sylvia as the co-chairs to do the conclusion of the meeting.
Well, thank you very much. You accompanied me to my kitchen. I prepare a cake of blueberries and lemon. Meanwhile, listening to all of you, I would like to share. But I'm super happy of everything I hear today. Energized. I really need it. I've been 2 years here, so in April, please take my place. But thank you very much for everything. Thank you very much for the ideas. Thank you very much for still continue working the hard work we do here for our communities, our countries, and our families. So that's for me. Super happy to have you. And Jessica.
No, the same. We recognize it was a long meeting. It is kind of one of those meetings we have to host out 2 of these a year. But it was just a great opportunity to reconnect. And I hadn't met Natalia. So Natalia, so nice meeting you. And Patricia, I think this is the second time I only have to have a chance to again be together in Zoom. The Ottawa annual general meeting is something we want to go forward with it, but it does require some thinking and planning, resources, and your ideas and support, especially for the Ottawa folks. So you'll be hearing from us. We'll be sending that doodle. Fingers crossed we can make this happen in April. But I personally really think it should be a moment of reflection for APG as to how to go forward, because APG does require a level of commitment that needs to be sustained, whether it be through volunteers or through paid staffing and then gathering funds for that. And I think all of the membership needs to be fully on board for that. So I'm excited, and I'm excited to bring reflections like the ones we had today with John. Again, was really inspired by the Common Frontiers meeting and what I heard there. So I hope we can emulate some of that. So thank you. Yeah, sorry. Thank you so much. Let's keep communicating. And Karen, I know we'll talk soon about Common Frontiers. I know you want to have a meeting, and I'm all on board for that. So any final thoughts, anybody, before we thank you, Laura. I know you're in your vehicle, people have parenting responsibilities in the week and many other things. So thank you for such a long meeting.
Yes, in transition to buy a pizza for my kids and convincing them to come with me to the parent student school meeting. They don't want to come.
Yummy, of course, but yummy for the pizza.
It's nighttime. Look, I see oh yes, it's already freaking 4:30.
I know, depressing.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you to our steering committee, Steve.
And thank you, Natalia, for referring that kind space. I didn't see that earlier when I was sharing, so we'll look into that as well.
Yeah, we'll research spaces.
Oh yeah, I know lots of beautiful spaces in Chelsea up north on the Quebec side of Ottawa. So it's just the money, right? the budget.
Yeah.
We have to see
We
what.
have some to make it all happen. I think that's my thing. If we get our pledges,
Okay.
but
Cool.
but you know, and it's about okay, being smart. We'll look into that without being irresponsible with the money.
Excelente. Good job, guys. Thank you. Gracias.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Merci.
But
Buenas noches.
Bye-bye.
Sylvia and Jessica and AC, maybe we can stay on for a minute to just do a bit of follow-up.
Adios, Patricia.
Bye. Thanks.
Only stop recording.
Oh, yeah. Stop the